Awesome. Okay, so I'll jump into it right now. Everybody, welcome back to this episode. Today I'm with Jose Gonzalez, also known as Paco. He's calling in from the Midwest, out from Wisconsin, and he's going to talk to us about his relocation from Mexico, just north of Mexico City, up into the Midwest in the United States. And what was that like for him and his family? So, Paco, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for sharing and being willing to share your insights. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks for the invite, Michael. Glad to be here. Originally from Querétaro, Mexico, 3 hours north Mexico City. I have almost 7 years in the States. I work currently with Orbis Corporation. I started with them 11 years ago, 2013. Well, a little bit of my history. I am an industrial engineer. Started working in aerospace industry back in the days. So that was an interesting activity. When I started there, it was funny because people was saying to me, "Hey, do you want to work in supply chain?" And I was like, "I have no idea, but sure, let's just try it, right?" And I started getting into the supply chain. That is pretty much the logistics, the procurement, scheduling, planning, inventory control, those kind of things. I was moving in the company, growing a little bit, and then 2013, I had the opportunity to meet people from Orbis, and they were like, "Hey, we have this opportunity. We're opening a new facility, a couple of things. We want to see if you're interested to help us in the setup." We accept the offer, start working over there 2013 to 2017. Uh, Pretty cool. It was a funny story because when I was going to be hired, the person who hired me asked me, "Hey, Paco, you are in a procurement statement. Tell me something that I need to know, like drastically from you. I just want to make sure you are honest." I was like, "Well, to be honest, in Mexico, we have our bachelor degree, but if you don't get a couple of credits for different things, you don't get your title. And I am missing those credits. And I was potentially already like 6 years out of college, right?" And he was like, "Okay, I appreciate that." So I think that he was like, "Okay, this guy is honest." So he hired me and he was like, "Paco, thanks for your clarity. You need to get your degree." So he helped me, give me some time to just make sure I complete the credits that I need to do. I highly appreciate
Wow.
to Alberto Soto. And then after that, he told me, "Done, done." And I was like, "What about studying a master degree?" And he was like, "Absolutely, I will support you. What do you want to
Never
study?" I
leave
was like,
anything on the table.
"Oh yeah." I was like, "Well, if he's supporting me, maybe I can ask for a master." And he was like, "Absolutely, all on board, man." So he supported me. Actually, Orbis sponsored me the master at that time. So I have a
Wow.
master in logistics and international trade. And the year after I complete that, I was in a meeting here in Wisconsin, first week of the year, and I was like, my new boss in that moment was like, "Paco, I have a suggestion for you." I was like, "Well, tell me." "Well, we're thinking about an opportunity in the States to relocate you, but before doing something, I want you to talk with your wife." So I was just flying back to Mexico. And in that meantime, I was talking with a cousin that was telling me, "Hey, just FYI, I will be relocating from Querétaro to New Jersey." I was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." So by the time that I arrived to Mexico, I was talking with my wife, uh, having some drinks for sure. And then she was like, "Hey, anything new?" I was like, "Well, do you remember my cousin? She's relocating to New Jersey." So she was like, "Oh, that's a pretty cool opportunity."
There we
Exactly.
go.
What about if I tell you that I was talking with my boss and he is offering me the opportunity to relocate to the States? So she was like, "Okay, some crickets." We figured out that during the weekend, and then I called my boss on Monday, and I was like, "My wife is on board. Send me the
Wow.
proposal. We play around that," and that was January 2017. By September, we were here in the States, and it was funny because when we did the house hunting over here was August. We live in between Madison and Milwaukee, and the area is called Lake Country, so you have lakes everywhere. So I took her in the town which have some lakes. So of course the dinner was the first day was during the sunset with a lake in front. So she was like,
Oh, wow.
"Oh, this is
You pulled out all
beautiful." I
the
was like,
works.
"Sure." And then once we moved first winter, and she told me, "Oh man, you should change
You
your
forgot about the
career to
snow.
politics, man. You this is not what you show me." Well, like, well, reality is a little different sometimes, right?
My goodness. That's an incredible story. So not only did the company help to support you and the family to transition to a role over in the US, but also with the education piece too.
Yes.
I find that amazing because there's so many different opportunities when folks relocate. It's either for like a business need where they need to either like from your side, so supply chain, you're looking at factories, you're looking at facilities, you're looking at suppliers and those kind of things. But then there's also that leadership development as well. And it's amazing that your company Orbis helped to develop both sides. So they, achieve the business needs, but they also help to develop you as a leader, giving you the experience and the opportunities. That's phenomenal. That's very rare. Not all companies do that. That's
No,
awesome.
and I highly appreciate that. And again, the trust also from the first manager that I have who hired me and uh, just trust, right? I mean, you're telling me this, but I don't like the story, but I will help you to complete what you need to complete and then promote any kind of activity to make sure you continue growing. And at the end of the day, the philosophy that he has is, well, if you grow in this part, then also we're going to receive a benefit because you're going to be having better training and you're going to be
Mm.
able to afford things better with more knowledge. So it's kind of that philosophy of sharing, if that makes sense.
It's like that common saying that comes to the back of my mind. I've seen it on, Splash on social media where they say, if managers are afraid to invest in talent because they'll leave, but if you don't invest, they stay.
No,
And it's just a conundrum.
but you nail on it. I mean, it's just interesting to see what happens if you don't. And if you don't, then you will pay the price even higher. Yes, people will leave, absolutely. But if they leave, maybe you need to learn why they are leaving, right? And maybe that's an opportunity also for you to create better structure to keep the correct people in the correct place, right? And if you don't have the opportunity to develop certain people, or if the people is trying to grow harder or faster for whatever reason, it's a first statement. But it's also good information for you to know of opportunities that you have to in the future keep and retain talent, right? So you don't need to be afraid. You just need to be prepared and take actions and learn from experience.
Absolutely. I also want to dive into a little bit about the actual real experience for you, because when we talked last, it was, if I'm not mistaken, you were the first one kind of navigating this on behalf of Orbis, the first kind of relo and setting, I guess, trailblazing, so to speak. And there's other companies out there that may have more formalized programs that they have, policies in place, and they've been doing, 1,000 moves and things like that a year. But you had to almost trek your own way. What was that experience like? And maybe if you can share a little bit before you arrived, what were the expectations? And then when after arriving, how did those change or how did kind of reality set in, so to speak, for
No,
both you
yeah,
and the family as well?
true. So uh, uh, the company hired a special firm who helps on this kind of processes. Uh, Main focus was a little bit more on the paperwork, just to support on the visa and this this process. It was the expectation potentially was a in February, I guess we have like the final signature of the proposal and everyone was kind of aligned. The expectation is we just submit the paperwork and then you can be working here maybe April, right? The reality was not even close. I guess I received my notification until July and we move until September. So it's a process that takes some
Wow,
time. And so that was one of the findings. So timing
nearly a
was,
year.
yeah, timing was a little bit longer than what we originally expect. I mean, we'd go through, so it was not bad. I guess my wife was a little surprised because she was like, "Hey, I want to know if I can do this or I can do that." I was like, "Just keep your life with what you're doing, and when we have a real firm timing, it's not in the company. It's a process that the government needs to figure it out. And again, we're receiving as much information as we can. And the team and the company did a great job hiring the correct people. That was very friendly in terms of communication. They were sending updates. They were letting you know, hey, this is happening. This is moving. Um, so at the end of the day, I think that it works really, really well. Uh, the opportunities, I guess, came once we relocate, right? There are a lot of activities as when you're in Mexico, it's easy to hire for some services. It's easier to deal with things like weather.
Mm-hmm.
And you come here and people who lives here assume that the weather even when it's different, they don't realize that there's differences a lot. It's not just the
Yeah.
temperature, it's also taking care of the houses, activities that you need to be doing. So I remember our first winter, we left the house and I just sent a note, hey, I will be turning off the heaters just because we're not going to be here. And we received confirmation, oh yeah, that's okay. So I'm not sure if the person who replies really read the email, but I
Yeah.
can tell you, Wisconsin winter turning off your heater is not a good idea. And per
Not for the
experience,
pipes.
oh, when we arrive, heater, pipes, everything explode. We arrived to an igloo and we arrived like one in the
Gosh.
morning. It was
Oh
not funny,
no.
man.
Oh my gosh.
So we started living here September. In January that we arrived, we have to be living a couple of months in an hotel just because they need to rebuild the heater, the pipes and everything. So that was an
Oh,
interesting thing. The other thing is just traditional services. You're taking care of the yard. It's not easy or as economically friendly just to hire people here than what you do usually in Mexico. So I,
mhm.
I I always say to my wife, I became a little bit more handyman than what I used to be,
Yeah.
repairing more things, learning a couple of things. Of course, I have been destroying more things in my life than ever, but you learn how to figure out those kind of things, and that potentially was for me the most important things in terms of communication and familiarity, just
Mhm.
because maybe we were not people was not assuming that those were going to be additional challenges, and it makes sense, right? For you here in your day-to-day life, you assume that things are January, February one way, June, July different way, and people is pretty much prepared for that. But
Their
for someone that
habits. You don't even think about them, right?
it's just different. Again, it's just a journey, but those kind of things were unexpected and were things that we learned not in a good way. I tell people from Wisconsin, I have more experience on winter and the weather than you in the entire life you're living here. I mean, not in a good way.
Yeah, not in a good way, usually. Our family faced the same thing because we moved from overseas into Texas, and it was a completely different environment. I was born and raised in Boston, and we have the cold weather and we have basements and stuff like that. So I'm used to how do you turn the taps off and empty the pipes and all that stuff for, but in Houston, I'm not used to the high temperatures and the ground drying out. And when the ground dries out, it actually cracks and you'll have like sometimes 3 to 6 feet cracks that go deep into the ground. So they have a thing here called watering your foundation to make sure the house doesn't move. I had no idea. So, and when we had the
Oh.
heat in the summer, they had, water retention policies out and you couldn't water the grass and stuff. So I just turned all the taps off. And my neighbors came out and they're like, you can't, you have to water the foundation. And I thought they were just like, this guy's not from here. Let's pull his leg. Let's make a joke or something. It's like water the foundation. And we looked it up on YouTube and it's a thing. Like that's what you have to do. And we never even thought about it. And I mean, those are one small examples, right? But there's like a lot of these compound together from different things that you do in your daily life to like your kids and what their experiences are and the family. And together, like we have a laugh about some of these things that are just, they still seem so foreign. And I remember when I first came here, I used to use the phrase, and this sounds hilarious, but I said, "Excuse me, I'm not from here." And people would look at me like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, well, here's my backstory. So can you explain how does insurance work? How does health insurance work? How, because I left when I was 18 and didn't come back till now and nearly 40. So that's a huge gap. And when you leave at that young age, you're in a different lifestyle. You're a student, backpack's good. And I joke with friends, we left with a backpack. We came back home with a 40-foot container, a husband, a dog, a completely different life. And trying to adjust to that is like those small things, it's very hard to pinpoint them and be prepared for them. And then when they happen, like yourself with the pipes breaking, it's just a complete mess to try to deal with.
You're totally right, and even something simple. I so 4 years after we relocate, we have the opportunity to buy the house, and that was 2021. And I remember that when we arrived, I was like, "Hey, honey, we don't have mailbox. We need to put a mailbox." She was like, "Okay." So we get a really nice big plastic mailbox, pretty cool, similar
Mm,
to the Anyway, so I remember that you need to put like a big stack over there. So I get like a hammer, like a tortoise. So it was kind of hilarious because it was so big just to put a mailbox. So I remember that I started just hitting it like it's going to be here forever. It
Uh-huh.
was not straightforward. When I finished, it was like that, but I was pretty
Oh no.
proud. Don't ask my wife; she potentially have a different opinion about how proud I should be, but that's different. And after a
Yeah.
week, we were opening the mailbox, and I was like, "Hey, honey, this is weird. There is nothing here." And I remember I saw the neighbor in front, and he was like, "Hey, Paco, can I ask you a question?" Sure, what's up? Dude, why do you put a mailbox? I was like, what do you mean? Yeah, are you
Mm.
aware that in the corner you have a small box in where you receive all your mail? I was like,
No.
no. Yeah, and I don't want to be rude, man, but the community will be asking you to remove your mailbox.
Oh
So, and I was
no.
like, no kidding. So I have to take it down. But the funny thing
Oh, it's
is that
hilarious.
when we were talking about that, we were like, yeah, I imagine the neighbor just drinking a beer, just look at this guy. What the hell is he
Working really
doing?
hard.
I should I say something? No.
See where this goes.
Yeah. But it's just small things like that that I mean things that you are not used to that I mean change a little bit and from one place to another is different and even in the same city we have a mailbox in the other houses. This is this new house, new area, new neighborhood, new rules. And one of just coming back to the question, I think that one of the opportunities potentially that we have there is this kind of Latin environment that potentially people sometimes don't, at least we were not aware of, that there are some communities in Facebook in where you can reach and just find people from your own town or from your own country, or at least that speak your same the same language, that maybe make you feel more comfortable to get someone closer to your culture, right? So
Yeah.
we were not aware of that until later. And that potentially was one of the opportunities on this transition that we have. So someone that can help you to say, you are here, but remember there are Latin communities, there are some groups that can get familiar with what you are used to. And those kind of things were potentially the opportunity area over there, right? I think that my wife was actually doing a great job over there because she's an architect and she left everything over there just to join me on this journey. And we have two kiddos. Franco right now will be 10 in October. Emma is 8. At that time, Franco was not even 3, and Emma was one and a half. So Andrea was pretty much taking care of the kiddos and spending majority of the time with at home. So
Mhm.
that was also part of the big change or the interesting thing. Right now, she has been doing a little bit of thousands of different things. She's
Mhm.
teaching Spanish and she's also running her own business. So things has been going well that way. But the first couple of years were challenging just to try to adapt, taking care of the little ones. As long as they continue growing, it's easier to do more things, right? But yeah, that period of time potentially additional support in that cultural empathy that you can find in the place that you are arriving could be an opportunity that I will highly recommend to everyone. Just look at Facebook. In our case was Mexicanos in Wisconsin or something like that, and that's where we start finding the group of friends, or we found people that
Connection
was kind
points and
of
stuff
used
like
to,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you bring up a great point. I also want to dive into the aspect of the dual careers, but while we're on that topic, that's exactly where kind of my company Better Go comes in with the mobility mentors, is that we couple that experience with people that are certified in either mental health, wellness, or life coaching, And when we look at diversity, we're not looking at specifically language only or region or things like that. We're looking at lifestyle. We're looking at people who have different experiences that when people like yourself, when you're relocating, you can find someone who has that shared experience coming from different regions, coming from different locations, but also different parts of their life. Because, if you're connecting, for example, with somebody and they've never had children or they don't know what it's like to raise children in a multicultural environment in a new location, that's not really a great connection. So that's one of the things we provide. And that was one of the questions we had as well, is like, how do you think that would have impacted the change if you had somebody there that understood that your culture was from kind of same similar background, not necessarily from Mexico, could be, but someone who understood what it's like to move to a new place, especially a new country with young kids, giving up your career, like the sense of loss and even the grief in that, because your wife, as you said, was an architect. How do you think that would have helped the navigation? Do you think it would have impacted the experience?
Oh, absolutely. It should make it so much easier. At least that part of connecting easier with people and everything. We were blessed because at that time, Franco started an activity a couple of days a week at the YMCA, and we met a couple, well, couple of couples, but one of them, she's married with a Mexican guy. So that helps a lot, and they are great guys, and that facilitate a couple of things. But one of the main things that we learned from her is that Andrea wasn't feeling really well in her English, and
Oh,
she understands that. Personally, I always told her, you know English. Maybe you were not speak fluent, but your English was okay. You understand perfectly, and she was always afraid. And when we started hanging out with these guys, uh, of course, we will have to talk in English because she doesn't speak Spanish. And she always say, your English is perfect. Your English is amazing. You can do it. Just speak it. Your English is better than my Spanish. So that helps her to start like talking. And when you mention if you have a mentor that helping with that kind of ideas, moving from another company, another country, sometimes it's just as simple as I don't feel that my language is as good as here. Maybe I am afraid that they will not understand me or that they are going to criticize me. And the reality is, uh, from her, and then we get that feedback from others, is, oh, your language is, or your English is actually really good, or your English is very acceptable, or we can understand you very well.
hmm.
And they promote you to do those kind of things. So mentoring those kind of things give you the security to start feeling like home, because at the end of the day, right
Hmm.
now we're at home, right? So reducing the timing to adapt to a place is a big opportunity, and it's always something that highly recommend. 100% agree, and uh, it's it should make our process easier. It was not bad, but I don't get me wrong, but these connections will simplify multiple things.
Let's talk about the aspect in terms of the dual career, because I feel like viewers could learn a lot from your experience, because that's always one of the topics. 90% of individuals who relocate these days come from dual incomes, they have dual careers. And if a relocation is significant enough, even honestly, even if it's just moving cities, it doesn't necessarily have to be changing nations or countries. But if you're relocating and one member of the family has to make adjustments, make sacrifices, that's a really, really big decision. So on one hand, you've got this great career opportunity for one of the partners, and the other partner is looking at it as like, well, I have to give something up to be supportive here. And if you, like, for example, your wife who spent years in school and building a career in architecture now has to say, well, that's not going to transfer in the US. What do I do? Do I completely give it up? So can you dive into a little bit about what that conversation looked like and how did you guys cope with that? And would you, I guess it would be great if we could ask Andrea too, but like, do you think you would do it again? And if you were, would there be anything that you would change? Because that's a really significant thing. It sounds like she's found her way with teaching and with developing her own staging company now, which sounds phenomenal as well to have the cross intersection with architecture and design, interior, all that kind of stuff. But that's, I think you mentioned it's about 4 year process of navigating that and developing that and kind of I guess if you want to say reinventing herself. But let's explore that a little bit in terms from a family unit. How do you make that kind of decision?
So In our case, that was kind of a personal goal. I always have a discussion with her that at some point in my life, I want to live and work in a different country. So that was not necessarily uncommon or new for her when the opportunity came through. I actually tried to
Mm.
participate before in another opportunity in my previous company. The reality is tough. One thing is when you talk about that, oh, this is nice, and then when it is coming through, it's a lot of decision. I always say that I will be really thankful for her my entire life because she trusts me and she just put her career aside and decided to just came in this journey with me. Uh, it was tough, especially because from doing things outside, working for her, developing herself in a professional way, she had to get back home doing just mom things. Uh, it's a big change. It was complicated. Uh, it was not easy. That's the best way
Yeah.
to describe it. So once Emma start in the school, I will say more in kindergarten, she
Mhm.
was like, "Hey, what do you think if I start doing, I don't know, if she was doing like soap or some kind of cleaning products, or I don't remember very well, like homemade formula. Don't ask me. She knows that better than I do, and she started going to the farmers market and promoting the
Oh, cool.
product. Then she decided to do some kind of flower decorations, so for weddings or for other things. So she was doing decorations that was actually she's really good at, but she decided that that was not going to be for forever. I guess I told you, and for people that knows Cantinflas, he's a comedian. I always told her, you're like Cantinflas, because Cantinflas is a comedian in Mexico that every movie that he made is a different profession. She was like jumping from one thing to another, to another, to another. Science Mexico, she was having the idea of at some point I want to do some kind of interior design and something
Mhm.
focused over there. So a couple of years ago, she started studying some kind of degree. I'm not sure what are the specifics, but as an interior designer, and also another one for professional organizer. So by the time that she started studying that, she realizes that there was an opportunity for her to start working just on the design aspect over here. As an architect, she needs to study again. The
Mhm.
construction here is totally different to Mexico, so that was not easy to just do kind of a wash. Uh, so she started liking that, and then there was an opportunity that came through to do a staging or home staging, and from there we were like, let's just play with the numbers, let's see what we need to do to make it happen. We did a couple of adjustments, and last year is when she started like 100%. She started 2 years ago, but I will say last year was the first one that was really focused on the interior design. So, and the home staging. So she started with a couple of houses, just talking with a lot of realtors, just promoting herself. This year has been really, really good. So she
Wow.
reinvented herself from doing some kind of, from doing all the architectural thing in Mexico to here
Mhm.
just, well, let's do this just while we do something else. Let's just change for this, change for that, to the point that I want to open my business. I want to do design decoration, and just start with the home staging. And right now she's working. Actually, I'm not sure if she was yesterday or anyway in a house around the area in where she's doing the full remodeling of the house. So she's
Mhm.
working with a couple of companies that are doing the contractual part just to make sure she's just
Cool.
monitoring, which is pretty cool. So she's not a contractor, but she's just helping just to connect people. Uh, she knows the owner of the house is kind of a friend, so
Mhm.
she's just helping on the coordination. So she's also expanding a little bit her knowledge about, hey, what happened if we remove this wall? Well,
Yeah.
remove it. Well, if we expand it. So that has been very helpful. And right now she is happy, but it was a journey that took
Mhm.
5, 6 years to be in the
Wow.
positioning where she is right now, comfortable. and she's experiencing a very nice professional activity that she enjoys. And even with this, it's not an easy work, the home staging. You will see her smile every time that, oh, the house was
Oh, it's
amazing, we did great. And when she see that, oh, the house was just sold out for 4 days after the opening house, she's like, oh, the home staging is working. And so she's really happy with those kind of activities, and she's enjoying it. And now is my time to support her, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing from the theme that you're talking about through these 6 years almost of her exploring new opportunities and reinventing what she wants to do and how to express herself. Like your support must have been so critical to developing that and understanding and having empathy for knowing that, hey, you had to give up what you had before. There's going to be an opportunity to explore. There's going to be an opportunity to try different things out. Some people look at that as an opportunity for excitement. Others find are completely terrified by that. They don't want to do that. And, personalities are different. But what I hear is like that. If I'm correct, that main element that helped to foster that was your ability to support her and encourage her, whether it was buying a staging company, whether it was looking at doing flower design, or whether it was looking at doing soaps and oils and all that kind of stuff. I think, would you say that's right? Is that like one of the key components that, perhaps our viewers can learn from and understand, like, hey, if you're going through this, just make sure that you're paying conscious attention to be supportive because you may be very busy in your work and what you're doing and even probably traveling as well. Last time we spoke, you were just coming from a flight. So there's a lot of travel, you're busy, you've got your colleagues, you got your things going on, where your spouse sometimes they can be off the radar. So it's really important just to make sure that they feel supported through those trial and errors.
Yeah, you're totally right. I say I can tell you in Mexico, I was potentially helping her zero with the kiddos or the house. I was just focused on my things. In these years, I have been helping her more like in home stuff, taking care of the kiddos, because at the end of the day you learn that. But for me the most important part is just listen your partner. I mean,
Mhm.
in my case she helped me a lot, but I knew for a fact that there was some professional frustration that she wants to do something, right? So you cannot just assume that you are successful and you will go 1,000 miles in your career when your partner in life is not happy. At some point that
Yeah.
is going to be a breaking point. So just listen to your partner and make sure uh, there is a desire to do something else. Just make sure that in the correct timing. In our case, took some years. Sometimes could be faster. Sometimes could take a little bit more. Every case is different, but just make sure that you give the time to your partner to develop the professional activities that they want to do in life, because moving to a different country, different state, different area doesn't mean that this person is going to lose the professional desires that
Yeah.
she wants to have, right? In this case, it's just she's giving away in this period of time. At some
Mhm.
point, just make sure you're going to give away a couple of things to make her happy, right?
Part of that conversation, and this would just be the last question about so that we can wrap up, is when you had that conversation, was there any element of duration that was in discussion? Because what I've seen before is there's been negotiations where it's like, honey, just for 4 years. This will only be 4 years, and then we can go back. Was there any element of that, or how did you set your expectation from the beginning when before you even arrived in the US? You were working for the Orbis, a US company and stuff like that, but before you arrived, you knew it was going to be long term. Did you have that discussion of this just a short while?
It was I don't remember the details. At some point, intention was coming here to try to understand if I will be or our family will be able to adapt. That was kind of a key element here. My intention was to get some training to try to take care of activities in potentially Latin America. Was kind of the main point at the beginning. Uh, Discussing maybe Europe or a couple of other things. Uh, we didn't say like it was going to be for a certain period of time, but it was like, let's just go through and we will decide. Like here things were moving, migrating. plan A is never plan B, and
Yeah.
you just need to be changing and be able to adapt. I always say that I struggle a lot with change, but after 7 years, I can tell you I'm not that bad at change. I can adapt
I wouldn't
myself
say
very
you're not
well.
that bad.
And in the case of Andrea, I don't think that we ever have a conversation in where we said, "Hey, wait me 1 year and this is going to happen." I think that it was more like a what is happening, what do you want to do? And I guess there was some period of time that there was some kind of frustration, and she was like, "I need to do something." And that's kind of okay. Let's just recap. Let's just make sure we start supporting each other. In this case, myself supporting a little bit more. Um it's just open conversation. I'm not sure if I will really say I have like a specific timeline with her for the time that we were going to be here, or the time that she will be able to do something else. Either way, we didn't have like specifics, but open communication. I think that I have a great conversation with her, and we're always trying to talk and chat. And one big recommendation, we try to be at least some time by ourselves as a couple without the kiddos, and that's when we just hang out, dinner, bar, whatever, just by ourselves. And that's the time that sometimes we reconnect and we talk about everything but the kiddos. That's always helpful because you are here, you're alone, especially when you have little ones. I mean, some of the conversations at home is around, hey, what your son did, what the daughter did. I mean, it's just around the conversation with the family. And sometimes it's important to dedicate some time to just talk about what you want, what are your perception in things, and what do you want to do the next 2 years, right? And we have that not very often or as often as I want, but we used to have these conversations and in a relaxing environment, and that I think that is a good recommendation from everyone. Just give you time. You're a couple. You need to consider that even when the family is growing, or you need to have a solid partner, and not everything is around the kiddos, right? It's also understanding what are the expectations and the desires, professionally speaking, personally. And as long as you have open communication with your partner, I think that's the best support you can ever have for anything, right?
I love that, making space for that conversation to happen because you're so right, the day to day can get
Yep.
clouded. So maybe not at the kitchen table, but find a place, go out together and make it intentional. Well, Paco, there's so many things I want to ask you. There's a thousand things in terms of like how do you raise kids in multicultural environments. Unfortunately, we don't have time for all that, but thank you so much for sharing your insights
I,
today.
I
I
can
believe
give
it's
you
invaluable.
I can give you a one last comment about that. We don't speak
Do
English at home. At home, we speak Spanish, and that's the way that we force the kiddos to speak both languages. So
to preserve
that's,
the languages because they grew
yep,
up. They were so young when they one in. You said one and a couple months old, I believe, when they
one
first
and a
came,
half, 1.5, and almost 3.
and almost three, and now they're in middle school, almost into to high school. That's for children. I mean, 7 years doesn't sound like a long time, but for kids, that's an entire lifetime of change and development and identity and all that kind of stuff.
That will be a recommendation. I mean, how you rate that? That could be a longer conversation, but in terms of language, just if you are not a native English, kiddos will learn. So
Hmm.
just keep your original language at home, and that is the way that you will promote kiddos learning both languages, and both are fluent in both languages. So that's a good recommendation.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you, Paco. Thank you so much for the time. It is a pleasure to connect with you and to hear your insights.
Michael, anytime, a pleasure being here, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Wonderful. It's Friday, so go enjoy your afternoon. And thank you again. Great to speak with you.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.